I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil. I never shook baby.
I do.
Oh.
Yeah, you remember that in Family Guy? Whenever my friend and I, whenever there's a Toblerone in the area,
Yeah.
where it's like I think it's in sync. It's like you want to split a Toblerone? Yeah, I think I do. Woo woo! Next on my thighs. Pretty good.
Well,
Very
you and your friends have some unusual inside jokes.
Toblerones are overrated.
Yeah, they're fine. Like if someone gave it to me, I'd eat it, but I would never go out of my way. Whenever it's like it's just hard to eat Hershey's.
Hershey's? Is Toblerone Hershey's?
No, it's just, but it's just like a jagged triangle chocolate, and it's just
I like the kind of triangular pieces. It's just I don't whatever the nut is in it.
Yeah,
or whatever. Something about it. It gets stuck in your teeth.
Yeah.
Not a big fan. I feel like they're really they make it seem all fancy because it's in like Swedish or Swiss packaging or whatever, and
right.
I don't know. They're a little full of themselves.
Yeah.
Chocolate talk.
Yeah, exactly. It's a new segment. So, Ben, have you gone to any Mozart concerts this week?
Nope, and that's all we'll say about that.
Good. All right, what's the next segment? No. So I went to see.
Hold on. So is it like one guy being Mozart?
Yeah.
Out of Mozart? Oh, really?
Yeah, he's just playing every single part of every single symphony.
No, I know that, but I mean, like Mozart was the conductor.
He was a composer and a conductor.
Yeah, obviously I know he's a composer, but at the show he would be the conductor.
Yeah.
So is there a guy being Mozart?
No.
Oh, okay.
This is not a theatrical thing. It was just.
Sorry, my cat is, of course, knocking into my microphone right now.
Quick tangent, actually related to that. There's this guy. I forgot what his channel is called.
Serious,
but he's got he makes unnecessary inventions, like inventions that are just like barely useful. But he 3D prints them and he does a whole. And it's actually really funny. It's pretty clever stuff. But there's one where it's like I forgot what it's called. I think it's called like the cat slapper or something. It was like for like when you're working on on your laptop or something, and then it's like this rotating thing. And it's got like a fake like rubber hand, and it very gently like pushes. It's got a motion detector in front of it, so as the cat approaches it, it just very gently turns around.
I don't know. That sounds really like that. Actually, sounds like something that people would buy because a lot of people work from home now, at least part time, and have cats.
Yeah,
I'm one of them, and it's just it's not like hurting them. It's just like
no, it's super gentle. It just kind of gently moves.
That's very Rick and Morty. Like in Rick and Morty, he like creates a little robot that just passes the butter on the table, and it's like, what is my function? He's like, you pass the butter.
Yeah.
That's it. It just moves butter from one part of the table to the other.
It's one of the like. Makes your life 8% more convenient. It's just like, but he had this other one too, where it's like, like when you eat like tacos or burritos, this stuff always falls out. So it's basically like a funnel, and then you put a tortilla under it. So anything that comes under it, it's like then you're making another taco out of the thing.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that.
Yeah, he's gone viral. He's got a really popular channel, but
he actually creates like prototypes of these inventions. That's pretty
good.
No,
he's got a 3D printer. And I don't know much about him, but I would not be surprised if he's got a background in engineering or something. Because like he'll design it and then with like special like software, that like mechanics and machinists use. But it's like he just puts a bunch of time and effort into making these slightly convenient, slightly useful machines.
Yeah, that's good.
But anyway, so I went to the Hollywood Bowl, which is one of my favorite venues, because it's just like this big outdoor amphitheater in Hollywood, and you can actually see the Hollywood sign in the background too. Yeah. It's like this big half dome thing. It's been around for like 100 years, and so it's one of my favorite things to do in the summer because, like, first off, tickets are really cheap, or at least they start off very cheap. Yeah. I mean, so last night on Tuesday it was the LA Philharmonic doing Mozart Under the Stars. So this did a full Mozart show, and then so I got the cheapest tickets. There's like $17. So I'm like to find like the last section, but like it's still like the way it's set up, like acoustically, you can hear everything perfectly, and you still get a killer view of the stage.
Yeah.
But mostly why I love going to the Hollywood Bowls is that they let you bring your own alcohol and food in.
It's like NASCAR. It's like NASCAR for cultured people.
Exactly. It really is.
Yeah.
It's cool. And so I've been there a few times, but it's like they check. Like I brought like a little ice chest thing, and they're like, yeah, okay, good, you're good to go. So it's like you're not sneaking it in. They
just getting lit at a Mozart concert.
Yeah, I brought a 6-pack.
People like funneling and Jello shots.
Seriously,
that actually sounds fun. Like that sounds really fun. Like have a party at a concert like that. Like I'd do that over NASCAR, definitely.
Yeah, it's super fun. So next time you come out here, if you ever come out in the summer, like that's definitely something we should do. And it's cool because like they just do all kinds of cool stuff. So they have a lot of major acts coming by, but they also do like they'll play like a famous movie, and they'll have a live orchestra playing the score to it. So that's
very cool. I would actually really like to see that sometime.
I saw them do Back to the Future, and I saw them do Amadeus, another Mozart thing.
Did you?
Yeah,
at the Hollywood Bowl.
Hollywood Bowl, yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and same, and there've been a few times where it's like, I get off work early. I'm like, hey, do they have tickets? Oh, tickets are only $14. Sweet, yeah, I'll go. The only thing is parking. Fucking dude. It's not just finding parking there, because I've always been able to find parking there.
Yeah.
Last year it was $20, which is like more expensive than the ticket. This year it's $45.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
It's insane. So
yeah, that sucks, man. I was gonna say that there are definitely some benefits. Like, don't get me wrong, I love where I live, and especially this part of my life. Like, there are definitely benefits where I'll like be in a city. I'm like, man. Like there'll be like a random exhibit or something. Yeah. It's like, that's cool. Like just be able to go and see like a Hopper exhibit, or one time I was in Philly, it's like this dragon exhibit at one of the museums there, like Hollywood. But like that stuff is very cool. Yeah. I do miss some of that city living, but then I don't miss $45 parking.
I know.
When I have my own, driveway and 3 parking spots at my house.
I know. But yeah, Hollywood Bowl is a cool place. And then real quick, so I've been to 2 John Williams concerts there.
That's very cool.
And of course he just does the hits. And it's cool. Like
he's doing stuff from movies. Like
from his own movies. Yeah. The first time I went, he did a medley of Star Wars themes, and it's cool. Like I actually have a video of it, but like I turn around, it's at night, and instead of like people like holding up lighters, they're holding up lightsabers.
That's sweet.
Yeah. And then the last time I went last year,
how old is John Williams now?
I think he's like 90 or 91. He retired.
Right. And
so speaking of it, like I went to one of the final concerts of his career, and he premiered. I haven't seen it, but I heard the movie sucked. But he premiered music from the new Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, I was talking to the director last week because we were finishing up recording, and he goes, hey, that's a really good piece. Why don't you play that at the Hollywood Bowl next week? And I was there so I got to hear that before everyone else.
The most recent Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
No. I'll probably see it. I love the original trilogy, but
yeah, original trilogy is great.
Oh yeah,
I'm actually a huge Last Crusade fan.
Yeah, that was great.
Like I really love Last Crusade. That might be, well, like I'm sure if I watched all 3 as a 34-year-old who rates and reviews movies, I'd probably like Raiders the most. As a kid, and when you're a kid, at least when we grew up, like I rewatch stuff so much just because you didn't have the selection that they have now. Like I couldn't go on Netflix, so I just like watched what my dad had. So I grew up on Indiana Jones, James Bond, Star Wars. So I've seen them all so many times. Like as a kid, I thought Godfather was boring as shit.
Yeah.
And I know now I love it. It's an amazing movie. But like I remember loving The Last Crusade, the whole like the booby. I mean, obviously Indiana Jones has booby traps, but like the invisible bridge. And of course the face melting scene with the chalice, the Grail, of course, the Holy Grail, or the fake one, and I just love the night there, and I don't know, I love that one, and I always thought that Temple of Doom was the 3rd one because it was like the weirdest and I think least liked out of them, but it's actually the 2nd, and Last Crusade is the 3rd one.
And it's actually a prequel because that one took place a couple years before. Because I think Raiders took place like in 1941 or 42 or something, and then but Temple of Doom actually took place in like the late 30s.
Oh, did it? Oh,
for no reason. Yeah. I mean, there's hardly any like continuity or canon. It's just because each one's they're not like James Bond movies. Basically, they're just sort of like each one's just like its own separate adventure. There's not really.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
So yeah, man. What are we talking about this week?
This week we're going to talk about 8.5. Federico Fellini's 8.5.
Yes. What? So this is your first time seeing this, yeah?
Yes, first time seeing it. I've been watching a lot of Italian movies because I'm going to Italy this year. And I was like, I know Italy has a very well-respected film scene. It's not like I haven't watched Italian movies before. Of course I have. You just kind of do. But I know they have a very respected like cinema canon. Definitely in what's called neo-realism, which I'm neo-realizing that I don't like all that much, and and horror movies, film giallos, and a lot of other stuff too. I don't think I really like neo-realism that much. You know why? Because there's a reason that we have actors.
Yes,
it's because they're good at acting. And neorealism employs a lot of non-actors, and I think that's very cool.
It's a cool idea for sure.
Like Rome Open City, that was filmed literally in the real wreckage of World War II, like the days after liberation. Like that is an amazing thing for history. But as a movie, I don't love it. I don't know what it is about. Maybe I just haven't seen the right ones. And I thought maybe we talk about that another episode, a whole neorealism episode for like a topic. I definitely think I would like to do a little sneak peek. I would like to do maybe film giallos as one of our October horror fest.
That'd be cool. I've seen a few of those.
We do subgenres. They're very cool, and they're very they're kind of like a foundation for a lot of American horror movies. But all that aside, this is not either of those. This is definitely a surrealist movie called 8.5 by the venerated Federico Fellini, probably the most notable Italian director, right? I would say. It's. Do you want me to just kind of give a background of it? We're talking about it. So this is a thinly veiled autobiographical movie about the main character's name is Guido Anselmi. He is a director, a film director. It's kind of like he's not trying to hide anything. It's definitely based off of Federico Fellini. And Guido Anselmi is a director who's having director's block. He's having trouble with his new sci-fi movie that there's a big set for, and the movie kind of meanders around his commentary on his love life, family life, what people wanting things out of him, struggling with success, living up to expectations, childhood guilt, childhood as a Catholic, and sexual awakening, and all those sorts of things. I really liked this movie. I didn't love it. This is regarded, some people regard this as like a top 10 movie of all time, not Italian movies, not surreal, like of period, top 10 movies, period. I think I'll just get right into it. I don't have a lot of sympathy for the concept of any sort of artistic block. Writer's block is obviously the most common, but I don't know. Like, it's just, to me, a pretty boring, a pretty boring topic. I guess I'm an artist. Like, I write. I'm a literature artist in terms of I write novels and short stories. I don't have enough time to write everything I want to write. I have nonstop ideas, short stories, novels. Like, that's not the problem I've really ever had. Maybe a night I'll have writer's block, but trust me, I'm not making money off my books. My books are not what is paying the bills, and I still do it. If you have the resources and the studios and the resources that someone like Guido Anselmi or Federico Fellini would have, I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me. I don't really care. Like, everyone kind of has these issues. And I think that just kind of took me out of it. Like, I want to see the mind of an artist who is working, not an artist who, like a brilliant artist who's working, not a brilliant artist who's not working.
Right.
That's not why I'm tuning in.
Right. So this was the second time I watched it. The first time I watched it, I don't know, it had been a while, at least like 8-10 years maybe. The first time I watched it, kind of like you said, it was just sort of like, like along the lines of Citizen Kane, where it's like, if you want to call yourself a movie buff, you got to watch 8.5.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll watch it. The first time I watched it, I thought it was long and confusing, but I thought it was okay. And I watched it again, and I definitely appreciated a lot more, a lot of elements that I missed the first time around. And I'm glad that you brought that you recommended this film for a topic, because I've mentioned multiple times before, like the depiction of like the creative process in films, and some films, very few films do it very well, but most films are just kind of hand waving. Yeah, see, look, this person's a genius. And it's like, yeah, but you never see them struggle. You never see them working. Yeah. I thought this film actually kind of went deeper than most other films when it comes to the creative process, because it really dove into like the psychology of him, where it's like it's not just like, oh, I'm struggling with this. It's like I'm dealing with like my crazy romantic life, and I'm looking back on things in dreams and memories or clashing, but I'm also dealing with the external pressure of the studio and trying to appease the critics and the audiences. So I thought it was actually more like psychologically deeper than other films exploring the creative process. So I thought that was interesting.
But like, what the fuck does that have to do with his, like, just make the sci-fi movie?
Yeah.
Like, what does like your sexual awakening on a beach with like a prostitute or the Catholic Church or your issues with your parents have to do with like a sci-fi movie? If anything, I would sympathize more with a character who is creating the movie, and maybe it's not his best work, but he has those studio pressures, the financial incentives, the deadlines, and all of that. Like, I get that, and your work isn't living up to the expectations, and that is your struggle. But that's not what happens here. The struggle is he can't do it. They have to take down the set.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. Like, I just don't find that very sympathetic, or not that you need a sympathy for every character, but like, if that's the thing, it's like, dude, just like make your fucking movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. I wonder, and I could be way off, but I wonder if part of the point is that we don't sympathize with him, where it's like he's looking for excuses not to make the thing, where it's like, the studio's getting in the way, I'm not sure I want to make that. And it's like, oh, actually, I'm dealing with some personal issues, and I'm not so sure. So I wonder if it's almost like a metaphor. I wonder if Fellini was almost making the point that you were making of like, stop coming up with excuses for why you're not creating the thing.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, dude, I wrote 3 novels in law school. Like, I found the time to do it. Like, my social life suffered because of it, but like that was important to me, and I had these ideas, and I wanted to like continue to like, I just wanted to make. Like, it's not that I rushed them at all. It was just I went through the process, and I wanted to make this art because that was important to me. And and again, I was like a struggling law student. Like, I don't have sympathy for the famous director who's just like, oh, I'm thinking about my mother and this woman I saw who's the epitome of perfect beauty and issues with, but like, I don't know. I just like I just wish there was a different, like, having. Again, because it's autobiographical or semi-autobiographical, it's like, okay, Fellini, like, you're famous, and now these years, it reminds me of like when a rapper or what, not any, I mean, it doesn't have to be a rapper, but like, let's use the rapper for it. They start off making songs about drug dealing and drive-by shootings and struggling and being on food stamps or whatever it is. Then they get famous, and they're not going to rap about it anymore because they're actually not in that world anymore. So it's like you have to you have to find things to connect with. A lot of it is stale or falls flat because it's not like, yes, you can rap about bitches and champagne and nice cars and all that stuff, but that only goes so far. You kind of lose touch with your roots. And here it's like I feel like it's Fellini trying to say, like, look at how hard it is for me. I've created this art and now I'm stuck. It's like, I don't know. Like, just go make another great movie. Like, you're special. That's what you should be doing. If you're struggling because maybe you've lost touch with something, or things didn't go well, or you overthought something, or you underplay, or whatever it is, and it was criticized, like that's fine. People like a comeback story.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But just to be like stuck in the director's block phase, I couldn't think of kind of a less sympathetic route for for a movie of this caliber. And I understand, like, I feel like, look, it sounds like I'm knocking these movies. I gave this movie an 87. It's fantastic acting. It's funny. It has some really, really cool shots.
Oh yeah,
interesting shots. Very surreal. What I said in the beginning of my of my review, which I haven't posted yet because I have one more to do. I post every 5. I remember I read an article in Slate back in like 2012, 2013, 14, that era, and it talked about the coolest look anyone has ever had was Cary Grant, North by Northwest, on the train with the sunglasses. And I argue that no, the answer is Marcello Mastroianni in 8.5. He's the coolest looking guy I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like and I said men's fashion peaked in the early 1960s. This is like the Mad Men look. The black suit with the white shirt and black, not skinny tie, but thinner tie with those sunglasses, his like kind of blonde comb over hair.
Yeah.
And of course, he's a movie star, so he looks amazing. It's like that's the like with the cigarette, and it's just the coolest look ever. Like, there's never been a cooler character put on screen, in my opinion.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, there's something about this guy, like just the way he looks and the way he carries himself, and it's like he's stylish, but he's not like ostentatious. There's just something very cool about him. So I'm glad you brought that up.
The best look. You can't top it. I said it, from the start. Men's fashion peaked in the early 1960s. It was, 3-piece suits with suspenders, not always a 3-piece suit, but usually with suspenders, sometimes a 3-piece suit. Those sunglasses, I don't know how to describe them. They're like rectangle and then a little thick. They almost look like something more, which is kind of weird. They almost look like something more out of like the late 80s.
Yeah.
But this is 1963, and it just adds something to that whole classic look, where it's just like a touch of modernity. Yeah. And it's again, he looks amazing. So I don't want to think I'm always saying this is a bad movie. Like this is film criticism. Just from a plot standpoint, I just I wish it was this style, these actors with a little different like purpose. Like I just found the purpose a turnoff.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you for that. So I'm looking at in Wikipedia here, where it says it is in a larger sense about the search for meaning within a difficult, fragmented life. Like several Italian films of the period, most evident in the films of Fellini's contemporary Michelangelo Antonioni, in 8.5 also is about the alienating effects of modernization. So the meaning thing I thought was actually kind of interesting, because I think that wasn't that like part of his director's block. It was like so early on in the film when he's talking to a film critic, because I think he gave the critic his screenplay and said, hey, give me some notes. What do you think about it? And then, God, I wish I could remember the quote verbatim, but it was pretty funny. He said something where it's like, it has all of the aesthetics of an avant-garde film, but none of the depth, or something like that.
Right.
Something along those lines, but it was sort of like, it's all like big and new and interesting, but there's nothing. It's also a very empty thing. So I wonder if that was almost kind of something that was affecting him, where it's sort of like, I'm making this big sci-fi film, but I also wanted to explore the human condition. But at the same time, I don't even know what my human condition is either.
Yeah.
So I thought it was kind of an interesting parallel, where it's like he struggles to, his struggle to find meaning, or rather create meaning in this film, parallels his struggle to find meaning in his love life. But at the same time, kind of like what you were saying kind of was that, like, I did not see much of a connection between the two. They just felt like two different things. It's like, a movie about a guy struggling to make a movie is that works. A guy struggling to find meaning in his own personal life, that works. But the two together, it's like I didn't quite find the connection between them. It felt a little bit like taking two things and just kind of slapping them together.
I think part of me just wants to be like, your job is to make the movie, so make the movie. Like sometimes I lean a little bit. I lean much more to like the craftsman side of things, which maybe you might not like. I think sometimes it's more about being a craftsman than an artist. And I think too many people get caught up in being the artist.
Yeah.
And what do you have to show for it then?
Yeah.
Like if you're not actually creating the art.
Yeah.
And that's where with and Guido and Selmy, it's like just make the movie. Like that's what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
You're a director. Direct. Create the movie. Stop making excuses.
Yeah.
I'm looking up because I don't think I liked La Ventura at all. Let me see. This is. Yeah, I did not like this movie.
Is that another?
This Antonioni? No, it's Antonioni. So he said Antonioni, and I've seen Blow Up, which of course was it De Palma made Blow Out. Yeah, that's what it was kind of based off of that, but like an American version instead of camera, it was sound. Yeah. I think I liked Blow Out more. Blow Up was actually English. Like it was a British movie. It was British characters, but it was an Italian director. Yeah, I did not like La Ventura. I gave it a 56. And this has a 94.88 on Rotten Tomatoes. Like this is considered a masterpiece. And I think that's why I'm just like not connecting with these Italian directors in a lot of ways. Like I've watched a lot of the what are considered like the staples of these like neo-realism Italian movies, and I'm just like not enjoying them. Right. For the most part.
Yeah. Now on to the positive, more of the positive things. I loved the blending of like reality and like the dream and memory sequences.
Sure.
And it actually, and we can talk about this a little bit later because I have an article about it, but it was it did remind me of David Lynch in a way. And so David Lynch is actually a big fan of Fellini, and so I'll bring that up later. But yeah, like there were a lot of really cool directorial choices. Like one of my favorite sequences was near the beginning when he's at that spa, and just the way it's filmed and the way like the actors are blocked, like there's something like where it's and there's classical music playing in the background, so it's like this beautiful luxurious place, but also like the characters are also like very stilted and like almost robotic in a way. So there are a lot of really cool things where
the movie looks amazing. Looks fantastic. And it and the acting is fantastic. Again, this is not a bad movie at all. This is a wonderful movie. I like the scene with like the harem. It's like it was all like the women he's dated before, and like they go up to the upstairs, which is supposed to like when they turn 30 or something. And it's basically like jettisoning them. I'm looking here. I've seen La Strada. That's a Fellini movie, and I've seen Amarcord, but that's a post 1963 movie. So I was thinking like maybe if I had watched, like I still haven't seen La Dolce Vita. I know that's probably the most famous Fellini movie. I was thinking like maybe I should have waited to watch 8.5 until I've seen more of the Fellini that came before this. Maybe I'd appreciate 8.5 more, but right now it looks like I've only seen, unless I saw he's in Italian class. Oh, he did do Rome Open City. Okay, so I saw that also. So I've seen 2. La Strada was pretty good. I have a Vitelloni on here and Knights of Cabiria. All right, Dolce Vita. I mean, Amarcord's really good, by the way. I think you should see Amarcord. That's also based on where he's from, and he's from like Emilia Romagna, which is kind of northeastish Italy. And just like that, it's like that's one of those movies. I like movies that are more about a place than about a character or characters. It's like just a town. Like literally, sometimes the camera shifts from like this group of people talking over to like what's going on in this bar. I always really like that. And that's what that movie's about. Like, it has its consistent characters, but they'll kind of intertwine. And I've always liked those movies. Do you know why the movie's called 8.5? I do. It's something like he had done 6 features and
he co-directed 1 and then like 2 shorts.
But I saw that and then I did the math. I'm like, I don't think that adds up. But I guess it was 6 feet. I thought it was 6 features and then 2 shorts. Wouldn't that be 7? And then this would be 8?
I don't know, man.
That's what because I watched a YouTube clip about it and I saw that and it was like, yeah, because he did 6 and there were 2 halves. I'm like, yeah, but then if you add another feature, that's just 8. That's not 8.5.
I guess he's counting the one that he co-directed because it was a feature length film. Yeah, so maybe he's counting that one as half. Yeah. So it's 6 plus 1.5. But then wouldn't that be 7.5 then?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We do not revere him for his math.
It's not a math podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick. Yeah. Well, sorry. Yeah. No. I was skipping ahead. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? There are a lot of like really cool meta elements because the movie's about a director who's struggling to make a movie, and like the movie also has a lot of the movie that he's making has a lot of personal elements in it, and like that's what Fellini was doing with this movie. Like, yeah, and apparently like that was very a common theme throughout most of the films up until that point as well, which is like almost every movie made was based on like a period in his life.
Okay.
So maybe these movies, maybe it's better to watch these movies in sequential order.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to do that, but like, I'm going to watch them more as they become available.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking that maybe I'm not going to rewatch this, not for a very long time. I have too many other things to watch.
Yeah.
But again, this is in no way. This is a great movie. Mm-hmm. It's not. Oh, you know what? Let me read part of my review, but more because I quote Roger Ebert. Ever heard of him?
Yeah.
And he has a quote here. Let's get to it. So I say the acting is wonderful and the plot is a trip, but it doesn't take me far enough for a 5-star review. In Ebert's 4-star out of 4-star review, he says, and I quote, "A filmmaker who prefers ideas to images will never advance above the second rank because he's fighting the nature of his art. The printed word is ideal for ideas. Film is made for images, and images are best when they are free to evoke many associations and are not linked to narrowly defined purposes." Unquote. I say fair enough. But I need the beautiful images to be tailored to something more coherent. I don't want to see inside the mind of an artist when he isn't working. I want to see it when he is. Otherwise, it's just navel gazing. Perhaps I should have watched 8.5 after completing Fellini's oeuvre, or at least said oeuvre up until 1963. So, I mean, me, Roger Ebert, we're kind of,
it's on the same level. Yeah.
Yes, level. No, I always love Ebert's the man.
Yeah.
But I mean, so my point being there is like, yeah, I love pretty images too. I want films to be beautiful. I want them to be gripping, and I love all of that. But if it's just nice to look at, I think something's missing. And this is a deep movie. This is not a vapid movie by any means. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just didn't hit me the way I think it hit a lot of other people, very respected people like Martin Scorsese, I think said. This and one other movie, which I'm blanking on, are the 2 movies the Voyeur, something like that. Anyway, are the 2 movies that best show the art of movie making, something to that, or maybe directing a movie. Like this is a director's movie. Right. How like there are players, coaches, or there are coaches. Yep. This is a director's movie, just like I've heard the movie. I really liked it. The Pope of Greenwich Village. I watched and reviewed recently.
Is that a Pope's Pope? Then is that like?
No, it has nothing to do with the Pope. It's like Italian Americans in New York City. It's Mickey Rourke and who's the Eric Roberts.
Oh yeah.
Who's fantastic in it. He kind of steals the show, but people are like, this is an actor's movie. Like you watch this for the acting, not so much the plot. And I agree. Like it is a wonderfully acted movie. But that's what like a lot of the reviews said that. So you could tell that's one of those things that like other reviewers see that and then they put it in their review, and it actually does stick. And I highly recommend that movie too.
One of my favorite scenes in 8.5 was when Guido is a kid with a bunch of his friends on the beach. And and then she starts to put on like this. It's because she's not even attractive. Like she's like,
she's she's horrific.
Yeah, she's kind of monstrous. But she's doing
like
like
an
this,
ogre.
I know. I was just about to say that. So she's doing like the sexy dance for the kids, and all the boys are going wild. And I remember, and they're all like dancing along. But I remember there's one kid, and he's slapping himself in the face.
Yeah. Dude, that's the second movie of his where they have a scene with a bunch of young boys on the beach with a prostitute.
Oh, really?
In Amarcord, it's the same thing. I think her name is Volpina, which I think it's that, which would mean like little fox.
Yeah.
And she's a more attractive whore, but she's still a whore.
Yeah.
She's kind of just like at some of the things. Oh my god, the things they say about her are. I remember one of the lines where it's like, oh, you put cock in your coffee for breakfast or something like that. I was like, Jesus. But yeah, it's the second. So I'm like, oh, okay. And that movie is also about his childhood, like based off of the town where he's from. And Amarcord is some kind of slang from that. Like Romagnol is the dialect of that part of Italy. So yeah, I saw that right away. But yeah,
it's funny.
She was hideous.
Yeah. Which is funny. I mean, like, I don't like to rag on people's looks, but
no, she's supposed to look like an ogre. Like that's the whole. Yeah. I'm sure that actress doesn't look that horrific in real life.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? 8.5.
I don't think so. I think I'm good.
So I have this article here. So I always knew that David Lynch was a big fan of Fellini, and 8.5 is one of his favorite movies.
Yeah.
So I actually have kind of a fun little story here. This is in Far Out magazine. In an interview, David Lynch declared that he was a true admirer of Fellini's works. I love Fellini, he said enthusiastically, while talking about the legendary auteur. Lynch recalled how he had met Fellini by chance. I found myself south of Rome for the first time because I was going with Isabella Rossellini, and she was in a film called Dark Eyes, directed by Mikhailov, Marcellini, Mastroianni. I'd worked with so we had dinner, Marcella, Silvana, Isabella, and I, in an outdoor restaurant during mushroom season. So there were mushroom starters, another course with different mushrooms, more courses with mushrooms, and the main course was mushroom like a steak. During the dinner conversation, Mastroianni discovered that Lynch was a huge fan of Fellini's works and took it upon himself to make the two meet while Fellini was filming Intervista. Lynch said, next morning, I come out of the hotel. There's Marcellino Mastroianni's car and driver with instructions to take me into Cinecittà, and I spent the whole day with Fellini. It was beautiful. A few years later, in 1993, David Lynch got the chance to meet the filmmaking hero again, thanks to pasta. I was shooting a commercial in Rome, a Berea pasta commercial with Gerard Depardieu and Tonino Delli, whatever, a bunch of people. Fellini was hospitalized at the time, and he was being transferred to one in Rome, which gave Lynch the opportunity to request a meeting with him. Thanks to Francesca, Lynch and Tonino got to enter Fellini's hospital room with the American surrealist sat down with the attendant, and he was in a wheelchair at the time. Lynch elaborated, he holds my hand, and we talked for half an hour. So beautiful. At the end of the talk, I said, Mr. Fellini, the whole world is waiting for your next film. He smiled and waved goodbye. Out I went. Next day, we go back to Paris, and while watching television, I hear Fellini has gone into a coma. How lucky I was to have had that last visit. But yeah, so I watched the commercial, the Berea pasta commercial. The Barilla. Yeah, it's not very Lynchian at all. It was it's very cheesy, like early '90s commercial for pasta, and I was like, I don't know. But anyway, but that's
Lynchian pasta commercial with
for a major company, like a famous. But and I was like, if this, the only reason I like that commercial is because it brought him together with Fellini. But But yeah, I thought that was kind of a sweet little story that Lynch got to meet Fellini before he passed. So
yeah, we gotta do a David Lynch episode. I haven't seen enough of his movies though. Yeah. So actually, since we're talking about directors, I saw something. I should have sent this to you because it's actually a pretty funny story. It was William Friedkin. He this was like a clip of him at it looked like a film festival or something. He was on a panel and he's talking about working with different kinds of actors, like sort of like straightforward actors versus method actors. And so he told about a movie that he directed. I think it came out in the late 90s or early 2000s called The Hunted. And it had Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro. Okay. And so he told the story about how he's
working with Tommy Lee Jones. He goes, Tommy's a great guy. He's a brilliant actor. But he's a very straightforward actor, which I like. So when we show up to set, I tell him, okay, for this scene, you're going to walk in through that door. You're going to say your line to the actress. You're going to walk over to the window, pause, think for a moment, and then you turn back to the actress. You say one more line, and then you walk out that same door you came in. And Jones will say, okay, so let me get this straight. You want me to walk in, say my line to her, go to the window, think for a moment. I turn to her, I say one more line, and I leave out the same door. He goes, yeah, exactly. So he turns to the assistant director. He goes, okay, put tape on the floor so I know where my spots are. And then he goes, then we shoot it. And then he does it exactly the way we talked about. It's like, cool. He gets it done in one take. But when Del Toro, though, he's a method actor. So when I tell him, okay, for this, you're going to come in through that door. You're going to say your line to the actress, blah, blah. And then he'll say, how about instead of me, why do I have to walk into the door? How about I'm lying on the floor of the room already? And also, like, what happened to my character when I was 12 years old that led to this conversation with this actress, with the character in this room? And then Friedkin's like, and then for these types of actors, I have to like make up some random bullshit on the spot just to appease them, to make them think that I'm giving them character. And so he's like, and then I did another movie with Nick Nolte, and he likes to write biographies, these extensive biographies for the characters that he plays. So before we were shooting, he hands me a 300-page, basically novel, like bio of this character. He goes, hey, can you read this? And I said, sure. So I go home, I read the first few pages, and I thought it was horrible, so I threw it out. And then the next day, we're on the set, and he goes, hey, did you read the thing I sent you? And he goes, yeah, it was terrific. It was great. Okay, for this shot, you're going to walk in through the door. You're going to say your line to the actress. It's like,
yeah. Yeah, there's a good whose podcast I've been listening to recently, even though I don't know if they stopped updating it or if you have to pay for it fully now.
Yeah.
But it was Bret Easton Ellis's podcast, and he had Friedkin on before he passed away.
Yeah.
And he's had a bunch of really good people on, and Friedkin was he was a good listen.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Was that the one that you sent me the clip for? Where he was?
Yeah. What did he say? Why did I send you a clip?
He was telling a story about he was shooting Cruising with Al Pacino, and then Pacino wanted to change something, and then he goes, and I told him to go fuck himself.
Yes. It was like, I forget where I was, but I just started laughing, like uproarious laughter, and I couldn't control it. Yeah. It was something like that. He said, I told him to go fuck himself. The way Friedkin says it. It was very good. Yeah, he was talking about Cruising. He was talking about a sorcerer. He said was the hardest job of his life. Like,
because he had to get that truck across the bridge. So
yes, sorcerer was insane. Didn't talk much about The Exorcist. Not that I remember. Obviously he talked about, but not. What was that?
He talks so much about.
He talks so much about it. Yeah. So. Actually, his last movie, the Kane Mutiny Court Martial, was really good.
Oh, really?
Because he didn't make a movie from 2011 to 2023. So that was the Kane Mutiny Court Martial was 12 years later. And then I think he passed away that year, 2024.
Yeah.
Well, no, not this year. I think he passed away in 2023. He might have passed away before it even came out. But it's really good because it's basically like two settings for the most part. It's a court martial, so it's a courtroom, obviously, for the military. And the Kane Mutiny, the Kane Mutiny, right? I think it's Humphrey Bogart, if I remember. And it's a mutiny on a ship because the captain is kind of going nuts. And he starts making all these crazy rules and investigating, like, who ate all the strawberries and stuff like that. And instead of like focusing on whatever they were doing, I forget what war that was. But this is, so it kind of takes that, and this is modern day, so it's like the Middle East, Persian Gulf. But it's Kiefer Sutherland plays the captain, but this is all like after the fact because it's at the actual court martial. And it's, I think, a super underrated actor. I want to say, I get his name, something Clark. Let me see. It is Jason Clark.
Australian guy.
Yeah, Australian guy. I know he was in Great Gatsby and
Oppenheimer.
He was in Oppenheimer and Pet Sematary, which wasn't very good. But
he was in Choppaquiddick.
Okay, I still have not seen that, but
That's
yeah,
pretty good one, yeah.
He's a lawyer in this, and he's awesome. And I highly, because I love courtroom dramas, and this is a really good one. So, and one of the actors that was in Girls, I forget his name. It's actually probably right here, but and Jay Duplass is in it. One of the Duplass brothers. Yeah, Kiefer Sutherland, Jake Lacey. That's it. Anyway, great way for Friedkin to go out. I think we did do an episode for him actually when he passed away. I think so whenever that was.
Well, Friedkin's discussion of like he always seemed like a very no nonsense kind of guy. And it seems to show up a lot in his directing and his directorial style. And so I wonder if the thing that kind of I'm sure that was just sort of his personality, but I'm sure that there was that this probably factored into his directing as well. So back in the late 60s, before he became a big director, he was dating the daughter of Howard Hawks. Howard Hawks was a famous Hollywood director like in the 30s and 40s, and he was kind of like he was kind of a tough guy. He's kind of like a stern, like hard-nosed kind of guy. And so Friedkin met Hawks and he asked him for some directing advice. And he said that people don't make movies that have messages. Don't make movies that are deep or profound, because it's just intellectual masturbation. Because this is how you make a good movie. He said, what was it? It was 5 good scenes and no bad scenes. And he's like,
interesting. Dude, that's a fucking craftsman, man. Like that's a craftsman. Like, and I'm all for. I'm for high art. I'm for avant-garde. I'm for pushing the envelope. I'm also for just like make something good. Yeah. Like make it well. Give the people what they want. That doesn't mean just always like giving them slop, right? Like give people something good that maybe they didn't know was good, that they weren't expecting. Like there's tons of it out there. Right. And yeah, so Friedkin. And I don't know, maybe Friedkin was, he sounds like my kind of director. Like I like the no nonsense. I like the just deliver, like make something cool. I mean, he has some of the most iconic shots of all time. Yeah. And I like that it's not moralizing. It's just make something interesting, multifaceted, but it's also, guess what? It's scary. Yeah. Or it's intense. Like it's thrilling, something like that. Like that's what people go to the movies for.
Yeah. So it seems like this is kind of an interesting way to like kind of contrast two different types of directors. Because it seems like Fellini is kind of more of like an inward-looking director, like much more introspective, whereas Friedkin is much more just like just make a damn good movie. You know, if it's a horror movie, then it should scare people. If it's a thriller, people should be, you know, like focus on the film. You know, so it just seems like just do the thing. And he just didn't have much time for like the sort of navel gazers.
And it's been interesting because he is part of New Hollywood, you know, and wasn't their whole shtick like making more movies like Fellini, like who's the French guy? Not Depardieu. That name stuck in my head because you said it.
Yeah.
But you know who I'm saying, making more avant-garde introspective stuff, because quote unquote old Hollywood was just churning out. Like, again, I don't like if it's too much of the craftsman, it just becomes a machine. Yeah. And that's not good either. I think is what Hollywood became. And I think that's part of the criticisms recently of Hollywood, which I think it actually stopped like last year or so when it was just the Marvel. Now, I think part of that's also because a lot of it's just gone to streaming, and now it's just prequels and spin-offs, and it's all about IP. So, and maybe we're entering a new age, a new Hollywood, neo Hollywood. So it's cool that Friedkin. It sounds like maybe he straddled those two worlds really well. Right. I can't think of all the new Hollywood directors off the top of my head. I know it was
Scorsese, Lucas, Spielberg, De Palma.
Yeah, right. Well, and who's the Russian name? What am I thinking of?
It's not Tarkovsky, is it?
No, maybe it's not Russian. Bogdanovich.
Oh yeah. Bogdanovich.
Yeah, Bogdanovich, Coppola. Right. yeah, these were grittier, sometimes darker, not always. Movies that I think
personal,
more personal and did have more substance.
Yeah.
But it was, and I think this is why so many people who love cinema consider it that to be the golden age of Hollywood.
Right.
Maybe not business, but of art. Like the 70s do make just amazing. Late 60s,
the
early 80s, late 70s, like those are a lot of the best movies.
Right.
I would say into early 80s. And again, I'm not like Tarantino, where I think a lot of the 80s has amazing stuff. Like we love horror movies. You can't love horror movies that live in the 80s. I love a lot of stuff that came out in the 90s. But the 70s for pure, like a lot of my favorite, Midnight Cowboy, things like 69, 68, 69, Taxi Driver, like Exorcist, like a lot of these movies are from the 70s. And maybe it's because they struck the best balance between substance and art and mass appeal.
Right.
Like these movies made huge, like Jaws, right? Like these movies made huge impacts on culture.
Yeah. I mean, like a movie as bleak as, say, Taxi Driver was still a hit and got a bunch of Oscar nominations. So it's like,
right.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So I think with Friedkin, and and same thing with Howard Hawks. I don't think Howard Hawks was necessarily saying don't make movies with substance. Like
right.
I think he was necessary, but he was also, I think he was also sort of like maybe kind of reacting to the notion that art is purely about expressing. It's like, yeah, you can do that, but start by coming up with a good story, and then afterwards you can be like, maybe this can be a metaphor for this, or maybe it could be a little bit of commentary on that, but focus on just making a movie that's got good scenes and make sure that there are no bad scenes. So it's like, so that was probably Friedkin's starting point, where it's like, yeah, this movie can have substance, but let's make sure that we do the good things first, before we start kind of analyzing and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I think the 70s ruled, man.
Yeah, a lot of that, because I'm looking now at the list of who's considered directors of that time. Yeah, there's Bogdanovich, John Milius. I love him. He's like unabashedly right wing, right wing movies. George A. Romero. Who else is on here? Kubrick, of course. I mean, he's my favorite. I mean, who are the movies now? I think the difference was that those movies, not only were they incredible stories, well made, but they were also really popular. Is that what's happening now? Are the movies, like, I guess, I mean, you could say Oppenheimer, maybe, Parasite, like, were they breaking box office? I mean, that's also a foreign language film. I don't know. I think we maybe are getting more into that. Definitely, I think we were in like the 2016 to 2021 phase, where it was nothing but like the most popular stuff was all about IP and Marvel and these things. And I do think there's a little bit of a vibe shift for movies where people are looking for something more substantive.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rise in popularity of A24, and it's like, like obviously they're not on the same plane as say, Walt Disney Studios or Fox or anything like that, but like the fact that they've made a bunch of films that have been fairly successful and have been hits with critics, and have even started getting Oscar nominations, where it's like you could do something that's kind of outside the mainstream and still get and still make your money back and get awards attention. I'm glad A24 exists, and there are a few other studios. I think Neon, which is kind of like a similar one to A24, where they're kind of doing like stuff that's sort of like small to medium budgets, but kind of like more off the beaten path type of stuff. So yeah, I'm glad that you maybe you're onto something, like maybe there's sort of like a resurgence of like bringing a little bit of that experimental indie vibe to the mainstream. Well, we'll see. But it's also hard to tell, because I mean, it seems like something will become really popular for a month.
So the culture's also just changed. Like I say it all the time, and this wasn't even the 70s, this was in the 90s. We watch Seinfeld, and they're just always going to the movies. It's like, well, what do you want to do? You want to go see a movie? Like that? I don't think that's not culture anymore. I don't say I think. It's just not. It's what's on Netflix or what's on streaming service or something else. Like not even that. And that's fine. Like that's natural that there has to be competition.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the cost of going to the movies is prohibitive, and they have to do something there. Movie theaters have to start giving more specials or rewards programs, that kind of stuff. But I think as much as you can compare an era that was 50 years ago to now, maybe we are entering that. And I would hope so, because that would be that'd be amazing to live during a time. Like it would have been really cool to have lived. I mean, 70s were awful in a lot of ways, but from a cinema standpoint, that'd been really cool to like have seen The Exorcist in theaters as even maybe a 25-year-old or something.
No, definitely. And it's also one of those things where it's like you never know what the era is that you're in. It's always like us looking back, like it's not like Monet got together with his buddies, like, hey, let's start Impressionism. What do you guys think? Like, yeah, let's do it.
It's like the Renaissance. It was like they didn't all know each other at the same, like one of them would have been 2 when the other was like 87. Like I was like the Renaissance. Like no, a lot of these guys that they didn't know each other. They weren't alive at the same time. But no, it's the Renaissance, even though it's like hundreds of years.
Right.
So we'll see. Yeah. I'm more optimistic than a few years ago. Probably even when we first started this podcast. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot more people in capes.
Definitely. And we had talked about Beau is Afraid, and even though the movie has its share of flaws, it's like I'm still glad it got made. I'm still glad that there was at least some kind of like, ooh, like this is Ari Aster's next film. Like there was still like a bit of excitement around that. And it's kind of,
I'm glad you brought up Beau is Afraid. It kind of feels like similar to 8.5.
Yeah.
I don't care that, because I don't think that's a good movie at all. Like 8.5 is a great movie.
Right.
Beau is Afraid is like, dude, I don't want to see your therapy sessions.
Right.
Like that's not why I'm watching your movie, is for your therapy sessions, just in art form.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes directors, again, they get so popular, they run out of stories to tell, and they just start being introspective, and that's not interesting. Like everyone's got their issues, dude. It's like do something else. Like make something. I don't know, go find some period in time that was really interesting, and you can hold a mirror up, like the Crucible and the Red Scare, right? Like they made, you can do things like that. Like not everything has to be original all the time. And I think to fight that urge to constantly make things, like again, you're supposed to write what you know, create what you know, of course, but also you don't, like it doesn't have to be all that or you could not, like we don't need, we're just not interested in those. I'm not interested in those sorts of stories where you're just working out your mommy issues in a 2.5-hour movie.
Sure. But my point in bringing that up though is that like you never see you would not see a major studio putting out that movie 10 years ago, like being for because it's too weird and it's too out there. But it's like we live in a time where it's like that actually came out. And
was that A24?
That was A24, yeah. So at least it's like, and it's just the fact that there was at least something where it's like, whoa, this movie looks wild. Like, yeah, I'll go see it. Or the fact that everyone who saw it was a fan of Ari Aster, or at least was familiar with Ari Aster. So it's like, is this a little bit of the return of the sort of director, driven, I would cinema.
If it had to be. If I had to choose, and you only pick one, IP driven or director driven, I want director driven.
Yeah.
Like I will see, even though I viscerally had a visceral reaction to Beau is Afraid. I hated that movie. I will see Ari Aster's sick movie. Like I'll just see it. He's earned that. Quite like Tarantino. Like I'm just gonna see. I'm gonna see the next Chris Nolan movie. Like I'm gonna see whatever, and I like that so much more. If I'm Denis Villeneuve, like I'm gonna see whatever he makes next. Of course it's next Dune, but whatever it's next, I'm gonna see it. And I like that I think it's so much more interesting as a culture than just. And again, I like a lot of I've seen every Star Wars movie. I'm not gonna watch the streaming shows. I don't give a shit. And I like that too, and those are fun sometimes. But it's so boring when that is what culture is. It's so much better when it's auteur driven.
Speaking of Star Wars shows, so I don't know if you've heard about Kamala Harris. She's got the she's running, or
I've heard of her. Yes.
Yeah. So someone
Hence my name
tweeted
here.
out like a very sort of like
yeah, I know what you're gonna say. Yeah.
So-
Yeah, there was like it was like a very fawning tweet of her, and someone was like, she's getting the attention that like a Star Wars, like a DI Star Wars movie gets, and then it has a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, from audiences where it's like,
from
the critics will
right, which actually does matter, like in politics even more, because you can argue. Like I, as someone who uses Rotten Tomatoes to compare my scores, I will be like, oh, I'm with the critics on this one, or I'm much more with the audience, or I kind of split the difference. Like I see that all the time, but in politics, audience matters way more. Like a vote's a vote, so that matters a lot more. Bring it full circle, though.
Yeah.
I want to do this. Do you know how A24 got its name?
No, I don't.
It's kind of boring, but it's one of the guys who made it. I don't know who. He was in Italy, and they were on a highway called A24.
Oh,
it was like the A24 highway in like some random part of Italy. It's not even like it's not even like the A1A on the East Coast, or what's the one that goes up and down California? There's Route 1.
Oh yeah, Highway 1. Yeah,
Highway 1. It's not even like one of those. It's just like a random road in Italy. It's not like the road that connects, Florence to Rome or anything. No, it's just like a random road, and that's how he got his name. Maybe it was like that trip he thought of creating a production. I read this somewhere. Don't quote me on it. Yeah, but like that. Yeah, that's where it was. He maybe had the epiphany to start a production company who's on the A24. Yeah, in Italy, which is where Fellini's from.
That's right.
All right.
Real quick.
Good? Go ahead.
I just want to tell just one more story that from so you brought up Peter Bogdanovich. So did you know Orson Welles lived with him for a bit in the 70s?
I did not know that.
Yeah, he lived with him. So Peter Bogdanovich was a pretty big director in the 70s, and so he made several hit films and stuff. So I don't know. He fell in with Orson Welles, who by this time was all washed up. But Welles was living with them for a bit, and then they had just some kind of like weird falling out. I don't know exactly how. I've looked into it. I have not found any like clear, like what the incident was that drove. Well, I don't know if he just kept eating all of it. He's just kind of like Kramer, just kept eating all of his food or what. But like years later, like in the early 80s, they reconciled, sort of. So it was weird because I think they were both living in LA. They were both living in Hollywood at the time, but Bogdanovich and Welles, they were sending each other like letters and so they were gradually kind of reconnecting and things. And then so after a while, Bogdanovich asked him in a letter, "Hey, so how did we fall out? Like what happened to our friendship years ago?" And Welles responded with 2 letters, and one of them was very apologetic, and then the other one was very like condemning. Was pointing the finger at Bogdanovich. Yeah. There was a note with the 2, and it just said, "Pick one."
That's good.
Oh man. Well, anyway,
anyhow,
Fellini, check it out.
Yeah, definitely watch it and let us know what you think.
And to me, like whenever someone mentions Criterion Collection, I like 8.5 is definitely one of those types of movies. It's like, yeah, this is like
100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay reckless.
Stay reckless. Stay reckless.
And fight the coconut crits.
The coconut crits.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.